I think that sport can change people and people change the world.
Welcome to Kuul Conversations, where I, Claire McSweeney, founder of Kuul Play, sit down with thought leaders, innovators, and change makers that are shaping children's physical activity, sport, and the future of our kids' health. And at the end, we'll see how they are positively impacting kids' activity habits and learn the valuable takeaways that can help us all, coaches, parents, teachers, and communities, unlock the potential of our kids through fun, movement, and play. Today, I sit down with Vanessa Åsell-Tsuruga, a former ASICS marketing executive and who now leads global sports strategy and branding for Rakuten in Japan. Vanessa lives and breathes the positive change that activity and sport can bring to all our lives. And what is perhaps uniquely inspiring about Vanessa is her passionate commitment to shaping the future of sport and activity for our kids. As a mother of 3 active elementary children and an active volleyball player herself, she is currently completing her PhD in positive youth development, so more kids can thrive in being active. A powerful and enlightening conversation. Here's Vanessa's story. Vanessa, welcome to the Kuul Play community. This has really been long overdue and a long time coming, and I am really excited for this conversation with you. So welcome.
Thank you so much. And like I said before, when we warmed up a little bit, it's Monday. This is me on a Monday. Great to have you on this call, and that it's like you said, it's an overdue call. We have a lot in common, and I think it's going to be just a great time talking to you today.
Likewise. So maybe let's start just right here with introducing, you and your world. I'm familiar with it, but for our Kuul Play community, could you talk a little bit about your background and all that you're doing in the world of sport?
Sure. So I always take everything back to like the beginning. I mean, I think that sport can change people and people change the world, because it changed me. So imagine me, I was a 13-year-old. I had left Sweden with my family. We'd moved to Spain, Barcelona. It sounds fantastic, but it was also not very easy because I was a teenager. I was like wondering about a million things in the world. And I was also put into this new context of not speaking English. I was at an international school, not speaking Spanish. I was living in Spain. And my PE teacher, Mr. Chris, whom I refer to over and over and over again, he gave me a Frisbee, and that really put a spin on life. And it's still kind of turning things positive today. And he also gave me a volleyball, and introduced me to the school volleyball team. And since then, I've just been playing volleyball, and I'm in my 40s. I play on the mother volleyball team at school. So I think everything I do goes back to the fact that sport can change people and people change the world. And then I've just been lucky to exercise this through my job as well.
That is remarkable. That's a very powerful statement. So maybe you could keep pulling on that thread of, he gave you a Frisbee, he gave you a volleyball, and then.
Again, I made friends. We went to the beach every Saturday playing beach volley. It contextualized my life through friends, through friendship, and those friends that I played with back then. I mean, this is back in the 90s. This is like 30 years ago. They're still very, very close friends of mine. And just to give one example, I used to play all the time with this Japanese girl called Erica. And Erica, eventually she moved on to like many different countries, but she moved on to Sydney. And I also moved on to some different countries. And then for work, I was working for ASICS, and ASICS was sponsoring Sydney Marathon. And I flew from Japan to Australia to have Erica house me in Sydney. She cooked me this amazing like carb dinner for ahead of the run. I walked from our house to the start, and it goes like the start is like right at Sydney Harbour Bridge. So we crossed Sydney Harbour Bridge, and this is the only marathon out of the 6 marathons I've run. It's the only sub 4 hour marathon. And that in itself was amazing. But I think what was even more amazing was Erica from Barcelona 30 years earlier, or 20 maybe, was at the finish line. She's like the first person who gave me a hug after like a major sub 4 hour like marathon. So again, yeah, that frisbee, like, it connected me with Erica and I were throwing frisbees in Sydney. Again, the frisbee, the volleyball sports, it just like brings people together, it brings experiences together, and yeah, it can make really good things happen to people.
That's incredible. And what I'm hearing here is it's the trajectory, the 30 years you talk about. It's not just the impact of the frisbee in the moment or the weeks
Yeah,
after. It's how it
exactly.
changed and impacted your life across your entire adulthood.
Yeah, and it's also like brought me to a very cool place. Like right now, like I'm a mother, I have 3 kids, and over Christmas and New Year's, I just sent my son, Melvin, for a homestay with my PE teacher, Mr. Chris.
Wow.
So, yeah, he just, he was in the US for 4 weeks and tried out like sports that I've never even heard of. He played like wiffle ball. Wiffle ball became a total favorite. Um, he told me I think he played like a dozen different sports.
Wow.
And this again, like it just goes back to January 5th, 1992 in Barcelona when I stepped into that school, and Mr. Chris again gave me a frisbee. So yeah, it's all pretty sweet.
I'm wondering what would you say to Mr. Chris if he was here right now? What would you say to him?
Ooh. I would say thank you for everything. And the magical thing about our friendship is that it's so active. Like we're in touch almost daily, even now. We're on Messenger, we're sending pictures back and forth. He sends me pictures of his kids playing ultimate frisbee. I send, videos of my kids playing tennis and volleyball and baseball and all kinds of things, very, very active friendship, right? So, and he's also like a great mentor now with my PhD studies because he did a PhD after he left Barcelona. So on so many different levels, he's like such an active person in my life. And yeah, I think it's all like it's a big thank you.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I wonder, has Mr. Chris got a lesson that maybe you identified, or it's characteristics, it's an approach to coaching and working with kids that maybe it's just one nugget. I'm sure there's many, but maybe that you
Yeah.
might be able to share for maybe those coaches or parents who are listening, that really, made an impact as you as a child and even now looking at it through the lens of a parent.
Yeah, I think the way he coached us, and I know he's still doing this today because he's still coaching, right? He's still a PE teacher. But it was that the fact that I mean sport just it transcends any boundary in the world. I mean, I think I had some broken English at the beginning, but he knew that that frisbee could become a language, right? So I think it's and especially at that time when you're a teenager and you're like, oh, you don't even really know what you're thinking and you have a hard time expressing yourself. And sometimes maybe we can just, communicate through sports. I think that's something he's been really good at. Just getting everyone like very, very leveled, regardless of like talent, regardless of like nationality, language ability, maybe ball skills. He still like pulled together a team, and we go play like ultimate frisbee after school. So I think, yeah, that one nugget which I always bring with me is just like how cohesive sport is for yeah, for just kids to come together.
And it sounds like you felt very included. He created that inclusive environment for you.
Totally, totally. Very welcoming. And it wasn't only me, it was like it was, people that came to the school and who were maybe partly receptive to it, but also didn't really know that they were receptive to it. I mean, we were all brought into this little bubble of sport, right?
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
amazing. Great story. Thanks for sharing that. And it's so fascinating then that that actually trickled through to your professional life, and you
Hmm.
found yourself in the world of sport. What did that look like for you, or what does that look like for you in your professional life?
Right. So right now I'm with a Japanese big group company called Rakuten. We're big in fintech, in content, in e-commerce. It's a Japanese company with more than 70 different business units, and I've been very lucky to work professionally with sports. So we had 5 years together with FC Barcelona as main partner, where I was, in touch daily with the FC Barcelona team, creating content and creating stories, and always trying to be very fan centric in my approach. And I've also worked with other athletes and teams, and it's been really nice to bring together my journalism studies back in London at City University and the sort of inquisitive sort of storytelling with content creation, which I'm working on now, basically creating a lot of content for our social media to turn fans into Rakuten users, basically. So yeah, it's nice to work with something that I feel passionate about, because it just gives you, like, it gives you value at the end of the day, and you spend a lot of hours, a lot of time at work. So if you find that sort of sweet spot with where your value and the work you do is connected, then it's good for me, it's good for my colleagues, it's hopefully good for the fans as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the fans are part of the broader community. So even if you don't play at the professional level of FC Barcelona, you may well be a very strong fan and play recreationally yourself, at any age.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where any rights holder can probably do an even better job at, like, pulling in the non super fans, pulling in the families, the kids, going more on grassroots. So that's somewhere where I'd like to sort of expand even further into, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's the kids we want to get moving, and more about that than I do, but yeah.
No, we're both very passionate about that, and it's fascinating
Yeah.
that you see a role even at the adjacent markets in sport, if you like, at professional club level, and the role that they play. Um, you say that they could do more. Maybe you could give an example, or what are your thoughts on that? That they might be able to contribute positively more in the space of youth sports and participation.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in general, there's kids are very, like, impressionable, and of course a lot of kids would love to see, I mean, somebody score a goal, I mean, a hat trick, and it's very technical, and they'll rewind, YouTube maybe 100 times to watch it, like, perfectly, and try to imitate it. But at the end of the day, I mean, not every kid will become like the Messi or the Ronaldo or the, Serena Williams, right? Like, I think we have a bit of um, a mission to also just get the kids moving, right? And, like, just make sure that they're happy, and that they're yeah, spend more time maybe outside playing, or if it's inside, ping pong, whatever. So I think in that space, just to get kids moving, and I think it's our we should have, an incentive for kids to get moving, whatever that is. There's many ways to execute that, but I think, yeah, any rights holder has almost it's almost like a duty to get kids moving.
Fascinating. Fascinating. And you yourself are doing a huge contribution in this space through your PhD in positive youth development and all the experience you bring personally and professionally to that. Can you share with us maybe some nuggets or where you're at in terms of some findings that may be helpful to people, or a message out of your research?
Sure. So it all stems from a personal experience where I was able to get a grant for six Japanese 12-year-olds to travel to Sweden last summer to play baseball with the Swedish team. And that Swedish team is actually based in a town where I've spent all my summers since I was a little kid. And they happen to be Swedish national champions in baseball. People don't even think Swedes play baseball, and we hardly do. But the national team happens to be my hometown in Sweden. So that's one very funny like start to this whole thing. Like coincidental but amazing. So we got a grant and we got six kids to go. Five of those kids had never had a passport before. They'd never traveled abroad before. So we started with like getting passports for people, right? They traveled. It was Corona still. Japan was still not completely opened up because basically Japan shut its borders for about 3 years during the pandemic. So many barriers. And we got six kids and three parents to travel to Sweden, and they were able to spend 10 days training with a local team. They did a bit of a tour. They joined a tournament which opened up and like let Team Japan join one of the local teams for them to play. Like they went to another town and they were part of like the first pitch, which is very ceremonial, where you basically have they asked all six players to come onto the pitch and to be part of the first pitch. So that's kind of unique in itself. Um, so again, this whole thing is super inspiring for me to like have these children who, their home ground is, 10 minutes by bicycle from here, but they went all the way to Sweden. So this inspired some thinking about like positive youth development and what can teachers, parents, rights holders, partners, stakeholders do to create like an environment where children thrive. And when children thrive, they're motivated. When children thrive, they feel like a sense of like vitality and learning. So what can we do to create this atmosphere for children? And that's what my PhD research is about at the moment. And yeah, trying to inquire with the players, with the coaches, with the parents, with the partners, which includes like value in kind, hosts, homestay families, the hosts, for example, the organization that gave us a grant, etc. So, what can we do to make sure that we create an environment where the kids thrive? And when they thrive, they positively develop, which means that we'll have kids with good character, with connectedness amongst themselves, etc., etc. So yeah, that was a long story, but it started with a baseball trip.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. And you really hone in on the environment, and it's something that at Cool Play we work very strongly on creating that inclusive, positive environment. And so I really hear, when you say that the impact of that is a multitude, and we're all part of creating that environment, whether it's educators, parents, and all stakeholders broader than that. For maybe parents that are listening and they hear positive youth development, what does that mean for them and their child if they're looking for an opportunity, or what should they be looking for? Would you have some pointers or guide for them?
Yeah, so if you look at the research, there's something called self-determination theory. And this posits that for children to be motivated, we should create an atmosphere that supports their competence, their relatedness, and their, what's the A? Their autonomy. Okay, it's competence, autonomy, and relatedness. And by creating an environment where you support their autonomy, for example, they learn to think for themselves. They learn to give their opinion a little bit more freely. You basically create character in them by giving them some space to think sort of intellectually. If you create an atmosphere where their competence is supported, then that means they can get better at maybe the technical skills, but also like life skills in general. And then I think the piece that's most maybe related to me is the relatedness. This means that you're, as a parent, for example, you can create an environment where your child understands that it's good to have friends, it's good to have teammates, it's good to have a good relationship with your coach, for example. So if, again, if kids are in an environment that supports competence, autonomy, and relatedness, then they will more likely become more motivated, which means they'll be happier kids in the end.
That's incredible. There's some really good nuggets there. That's amazing.
Mhm.
And amazingly helpful for parents trying to navigate this whole space. And that brings me probably to a question that's come up quite a bit around the specialization for parents that they're trying to navigate. And especially when we're talking about kids, elementary school kids, maybe under 12, and we see a huge decline in participation over the last 20 years. Now, we've sort of returned to pre-pandemic levels, but those were already low levels anyhow. And we're starting to see even some kids maybe who have lost interest over that period where they were disengaged over the pandemic. But this issue of sport specialization is really huge. Maybe you could
Mm.
kind of give us some insight into, maybe is this a reason why kids opt out, and where for parents, how can they navigate that?
Yeah, I think it's a hot topic. I mean, I live in a country, Japan, which tends to specialize quite early. So just to contextualize, so I have three kids, but let's speak about one of them, the oldest one, who's 12. Just the baseball is every Saturday and every Sunday. It's almost 9 to 5, twice a week. And right now he's also adding a third day to the baseball, so that's baseball 3 times a week. In addition, he's also playing tennis 3 times a week. Naturally, right now, like some experts will tell me, oh, he should, if he wants to be a tennis player, he should focus on tennis. Or if he wants to play baseball, he should probably like focus on baseball. But who knows what he wants to? How can you know what you want to be when you're 12? I mean, it's not your parents who should want you to be something. It's you who should want to be something. And whether it's tennis player, baseball player, or whatever other thing in the world, I think 12 is, in my opinion, is too early to decide. So for us as a family, we keep supporting him to try to do everything, but I also have like very honest conversations with him. Like, you need to tell me if this gets too much, like if your body starts hurting, if you start feeling just too tired and too exhausted, right? So I think beyond, we can read like research, we can compare to other parents, but at the end of the day, it's you and your child. And I think you need to find that, you need to find time to have those conversations to make sure that you and your child understand each other and that you listen to them. If it gets too much, maybe it's time to like drop one or the other. But maybe it goes back to like the autonomy and creating that space where your child feels that he or she can speak to you and tell you their honest minds.
Right, that is so valuable and so practical and tangible because you're right. There's so much research and there's a lot of research around, the importance of not specializing for all those reasons, but navigating that with your child is a whole other a different element. So that's enormously helpful. Um, and it actually brings it out further that there are even forces coming in on parents that they have to push back against maybe or try to navigate on top of it that are external to that bubble that you talk about in the relationship between parent and child. And in that, I'm thinking of more recently that's come on stream, name, image, likeness. And
Right.
it's something that's been in maybe the collegiate sports, filtered into high school, and now we're starting to see it trickle into elementary sports.
Yeah.
Maybe you could touch on that and your thoughts on that, especially being in the broader sports marketing industry and seeing it at adult level.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's recently come to my attention, and I think, not being a subject expert whatsoever, I think it's a space that we should tread a little carefully to begin with, because at that age, like 11, 12, kids maybe just even got their phones. They haven't even gotten used to how to use their phone, how to send images to each other, how do you treat a phone, and how do you make sure that you stay safe on the phone, etc., etc. So if you're going to add a level of, please make sure that you're a great athlete, but also please make sure that we get all this great imagery of you so that we can post it on social media and we can sell it, and basically make some sponsorship money off it as well. um, I think, yeah, we need to be a little bit careful, and we need to consider the best for the child at that level. And again, what is it the child wants at that level? And so, yeah, the name, image, likeness piece for children that young. Yeah, I'm definitely on the fence if I think it's a good thing or not.
Yes, yes, it's definitely a complicated space. And I think those of us that are concerned about children and their welfare essentially would have concerns around the consumer. We have consumer protection rights at adult level. And I think rather than implementing things, it's important that we do that with due consideration. So it's definitely a
Yeah,
very interesting space. And for sure, one will be
definitely.
watching closely. And it'll be interesting to see how it evolves and how kids are protected within that for sure.
For sure. Yeah, no, thanks for bringing this to my attention, by the way.
Oh, not at all, not at all. Vanessa, it's so interesting to me, this conversation in general and your work and your life story. And it's fascinating how you've blended everything together, and taken the experiences to really positively impact in so many different lanes. And there's one concept which resonates an awful lot, and I'd love maybe to bring it to the community and for you to share what you mean by it. And that's the word sports personship. Would you mind maybe just chatting to us a little bit about sports personship?
Yeah, so I was doing, again, research for my PhD, and of course I used to say sportsmanship, right? I mean, that's usually the word we use, right?
Yep.
Sportsmanship. And then I read in some of the articles, they start using, all of a sudden I started seeing sports personship. And when I started looking at, like, wait, when did even the change occur? It was like, I think it was in the mid 90s when one of the big dictionaries started creating like non-gender based definitions, right? So sportsmanship and sports personship is the bigger, more inclusive definition or usage, right? So what does it mean in the end? I actually used it as a case when I gave a little speech at my son's baseball, when he finished the season. He finished this school, and he leaves the team to go on to the next team because he graduates from elementary school. So I spoke to the kids at the party about sportsmanship. Actually, I didn't use the word sports personship, but what it means in the end is that you you apply what you know in sports to everything in life, and it's about being a good teammate. It's about being respective of the referee. It's about respecting the rules. It's about setting goals for yourself, etc., etc. And if we can have kids who understand that, like what's happening on the field, hopefully it's good things. Sometimes I know we have bad behavior from athletes as well, but basically good sportsmanship means that you follow a set of rules and you take that beyond the field of play, and you apply it in your home, at school, when you're talking to your teacher, a friend, somebody. So yes, creating a new generation that really understands sports personship and applies it, I think is gonna make things really good for all of us. And then that kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning, that sport can change people and people change the world.
That's incredible. It's so, so powerful. Vanessa, what would you like to say? Do you have a message, or maybe it's advice, maybe it's a point of information for parents, maybe it's women in sport, maybe it's inclusion? I'm sure there's lots. Is there
Mhm.
anything you'd like to finish out this conversation with?
I think we probably don't even understand all the good things that sport can bring us. So if your kid is like, oh, let's go for a walk, go for a walk. Like if they want to go to the beach and throw some frisbee, go to the beach. I mean, I think we should say yes a little bit more to our kids, and spend time with them being active.
That's incredible. That's powerful. Absolutely powerful. And I'm going to finish on sport can change people and people change the world. And it's something you really live by. You live and breathe it, Vanessa. It is so refreshing and such a joy to be connected with you, to work in the broader sphere and to have you in this space. Thank you so much for your time today. And can I ask, will you come back to us when you're finished your PhD and share some more learnings? We'd be delighted to learn more from you.
I would be delighted. I look forward to that day. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Vanessa.